All right, today we're going to be talking cash on cash return, right? Sometimes you're going to see this as COC, cash on cash. And what we're going to do, how we're going to do it is we're going to look at and evaluate an $85,000 property that I just did a walkthrough on. You should be able to see it here. So look at this walkthrough, and as I walked through the property, I truly think you could rent the property out as it is now. However, I like to do a little bit of updates on our properties and make them a little closer to what I would want to live in, and I believe it needs new floors. I think that new light fixtures and getting the kitchen updated, preferably with the new floors and painting the kitchen cabinets, would be a great way to elevate the property. Looking at the numbers, I think we'd be around $7,200 to pay our contractors to do what needs done in the property. So this property, like I said, was $85,000 right now, and I think it could rent around $875 a month in our area. Now let's dive in and just look at the cash on cash, right? I saw a video one time recently actually that said as long as the property hits the 1% rule, right, which is essentially says that if you paid 85,000, that the property should rent for right around $850 a month. The video I saw earlier said that as long as that happened, the property will cash flow. Not so fast. Although we will see here in a minute that this one could cash flow technically, your cash on cash return on this is actually not going to work out the way we'd think. But let's dive in. So $875 a month. Now, if we made a $70,000 offer on this property, right? That's a big hit, but we're making a $70,000 offer on the property. We're not going to beat them up on inspections. We're going to get a loan and we're going to pay 15% down, right? So it's a $70,000 offer price. We're going to pay 15% down, which is $10,500. And that's going to be our down payment. So out of our pocket, that cash out is $10,500. Now, right now, I'm assuming we're getting this at a 7% interest rate and we're amortized at 20 years. That's going to make our monthly payment, principal and interest only, around $461.30. But when you figure for taxes and insurance, our real payment is going to be closer to $602.77. So we've got $602.77. That's our actual principal and interest payment. Now remember I said we've got $875 a month, right? Well, you could say, Jonathan, it's still cash flowing, right? It's $275 over that 602. Well, again, not so fast. If you've looked at my videos before, you know that I figure for about 23% of the monthly cost going out in expenses, and that's going to be property management. It's going to be the maintenance of the property. It's going to be CapEx and vacancy. So 23%. So when you take 875 and you take 77% of that, that leaves you with only $673. And let's see, I've got my notes here, 75 cents. Now, as you can see, the difference here now, we're only talking about 70 some dollars. It's actually $70 and some change every month, which comes out to $849.36 every year. So got $849.36. Now, whether or not you think that's a big number or not is not the point. Really what we want to compare this number to is the amount of cash we put into the property. Now, assuming that we could rent it at $875 a month right now, as is, with no additional money, this may or may not be a bad deal, because this $849, when we compare it to our $10,500 that we put in the property, would be an 8% return, right? That's not a bad return when you figure the fact that this is just the cash on cash return, and that doesn't account for the fact that the tenant is paying down your mortgage and that we've already figured for CapEx and maintenance, right? So again, looking at this cash on cash return, 8%, that may not be a bad deal. Now, if you're like me though, thinking, hey, I may have to put another $7,200 into this property, that means that this $10,500 of my out-of-pocket cash just went up to $17,700 because I'm paying my contractors to get the job done. And if I had to do that, that would reduce my cash on cash by quite a bit, because now we're going to look at this $849 and compare it, divide it by the $17,700, and all of a sudden we would be at a 4% return. You can do better than that in the stock market, and you can almost do the same as that at your bank with no toilets, no light fixtures, and no calls at midnight. So when you're evaluating rental property, one of the things we look at is the cash on cash return. I hope this helped you. If you have any questions, shoot me a text 417-439-7721 and make it an amazing week.